Hello and welcome to another edition of the No Gimmies podcast, where we are continuing our review of every conference in the NBA.
Review, preview, kind of.
Preview.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of a recap and leading into this season. We're really excited about it. We have a few other things that we need to cover before we get to the Central Division. What has been a very boring and lackluster offseason has provided some entertainment just today for all of us. But before we get to that, let me introduce my co-host and my good friend, Aaron Bullwinkle. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. It's very funny because this morning, you and I go kind of text each other and do our little rundown of what we're planning as our rundown for the podcast. And when I woke up this morning, my first thought was I didn't know what to open with because it had been a relatively quiet week. And while we've been opening with the WNBA, and we're going to talk about them plenty, and there's been some intrigue, particularly where the playoffs are concerned, of what teams have already clinched and things like that, it was mostly a quiet week for basketball, which, outside of Eurobasket, that's not surprising. But I'd love to thank Kawhi Leonard and, more importantly, Pablo Torre for giving us a whole, cornucopia of conversation to get going with, because obviously, unless you've been under a rock, you've heard about the Kawhi Leonard Clippers aspiration news, which has been, as we talk about it, I'll give my feelings, but the story of the summer, as of right now, really kind of over, prior to this, it was skinny Luka and discontented LeBron and the various BS that kind of all felt like remixes of the same story anyways. But no, this one, we get kind of a fresh play on the hit list or on the playlist, excuse me.
Yeah, that's right. So one thing I do want to say before we get started on the actual story, you called out Pablo Torre, and I'm glad that you did, because what sports has been missing in this culture of hot takes and people just yelling at screens and trying to come up with something to go viral is just true investigative sports journalism. And Pablo Torre, on his amazing podcast, which is called Pablo Torre Finds Out, he does deep dives and finds stories that are, you can question whether or not they are news at times, but he defends his points incredibly well. He defends his stories incredibly well, because he says in his mind as a journalist that this is newsworthy, and here's why. Now, this one is obviously newsworthy because we're talking about, for those who don't know, the story came out today that Pablo. I'm sorry, Aaron. Before I get started,
just before you go into the rest of it, part of the reason I shouted out Pablo Torre and the reason I appreciate you and where we are like-minded is this is like the last bastion of real sports journalism. And for as much as Pablo Torre will fully admit that there's a convergence of sports and culture and humor and silliness to what he does, the work that they've been doing, for those that followed the NFL Players Union stuff, this story, obviously he had the weird little riff with Bill Simmons where that was like the version of people saying, well, is this news? But really, if you're breaking these kind of stories that are substantive and foundational to how sports function as an entire ecosystem, it absolutely is. And he's doing really hardcore investigative journalism. So I appreciate that you made the point that I was going to make, but I wanted to glom onto it because I don't think we can say too much about the work that him and his team are doing right now, because it's not just that it's excellent work, but it's so needed because every other outlet has gone the exact opposite direction of that type of quality substance, research, work, and depth.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Pablo Torre goes into this company that I think their goal was to plant trees, if I'm not mistaken. A company called Aspiration.
Yeah, it's to plant trees, but really it's to give major corporations carbon emission credits. But
there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Well, I'm about to say, I'm not going to get into what the actual, but so they have a litany of celebrity endorsements, because in 2025, if you want to get your message out and you want to get your business name out there, you pay people like Robert Downey Jr. and Doc Rivers and Steve Ballmer, who was a big contributor to Aspiration. But one of the recipients of some money that was guaranteed from Aspiration, that was located in their their bankruptcy documents that they filed. The fourth largest recipient was a group called KL2, and that turns out to be $28 million that was supposed to go out in cash to Kawhi Leonard over 4 years, $7 million per year.
I also love that it was called KL2 Aspire.
Fire, yes.
Aspire, just yeah. But anyways,
Look,
and I didn't mean that to be pedantic. It just seems like it was so lazy that they just made the LLC a name that feels like an offshoot of the company's name in the first place. But
Kawhi Leonard is not a man who cares for fluff, I would imagine. He's like, look, my name is Kawhi Leonard. My number is 2.
yeah,
And their company is called Aspiration, and I aspire to get money from them.
yeah.
So it's very direct. The board man gets paid. The board man does not want to hear your excuses. The board man wants his he wants his $7 million. So basically, the accusation that's being leveled at the Clippers organization is that this was used to circumvent the salary cap whenever Kawhi Leonard first signed to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, this isn't the first kind of sketchy detail that we heard about the negotiations that happened with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers when he finally decided to sign with them in the summer of 2019, going into the 2020 season. There was some talk that his uncle Dennis wanted some compensation, that he wanted some sort of title within the organization. And basically, Kawhi was trying to get to maximize his position. He was the most coveted free agent on the market. The Clippers promised to pay him. They also promised to trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari and a boatload of picks to pair him with another superstar teammate in Paul George.
Real quickly, did you happen to listen to the Pablo Torre episode at all?
I didn't get to listen to the whole thing. I got to listen to clips because I've been busy today.
There's a phenomenal quote of somebody going back and giving the details of the Paul George trade, where they call him Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and everybody was like, I wonder what happened with that Shai Gilgeous guy. I wonder if that worked out for him. But just listening to like
was that the employee from Aspiration that was talking about it?
No, they went back and were just playing like old quotes from the trade. So this was some pundit who was paid to know the gentleman's name.
Oh, yeah.
But that is also just funny to think about where his profile is as a player, where like 2 of the 3 names that he goes by, they just completely butchered. And it wasn't like he wasn't a known property then, just nobody really cared about him the way they do now. Wonder what happened with that guy. I hope it worked out for Shai.
Man, Shai, I really hope that you're succeeding out there somewhere, wherever the hell you are in God's country. So basically we have this accusation against the Clippers that they basically use this company to circumvent the salary cap to give Kawhi Leonard more money. This is not the first time that we've talked about it, but this is the first time that people seem to actually care, because just a couple of years ago, Jalen Brunson signed his contract extension for $100 million less than he would have gotten had he taken the full max. And then there's some Anthony Davis stuff that you and I talked about earlier we can get into after this. But mostly just to start off, and I do want to make this quick. We are at the tip-off. I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't want to waste too much time because our podcasts are already lengthy as they are. But
get over it. That's what chapters are for. It's fine.
That's what chapters are for. It's true. But I do want to get your thoughts on what you think about this situation with Kawhi Leonard, because this is quite the bombshell report. $28 million is a lot if you got a shoe deal. A $28 million no-show job, which is what Pablo Torre is calling it, is actually crazy. Because he has never once mentioned Aspiration. He's never done a commercial, never done a promotion. He's never done a radio interview, nothing. He got $28 million for zero work.
Looks like what Aspiration was actually doing is planting the seeds of corruption. Oh, no. So, like, going to it from the first place, it feels like there's both a lot to unpack and almost nothing to unpack here at the same time. The first part is, yes, this is crazy, and the number is big, and there is a sticker shock, and the fact that somebody was finally caught for circumvention being a really big thing. The flip side of this for me is one, I don't really find this surprising at all. This didn't really catch me off guard. It didn't shock me in general. I'm not like, oh man, this is gonna be a seismic event in the league. What I expect this to really be is a lot of other ownerships and teams are now calling their people and going, hey, did you make sure that we're covered in terms of not having some of these back deals that we've done be transparent? The reality is you can read the history of professional sports from the beginning, and corruption is always present in luring players to teams. This number and the way that it happened is crazy and big, but it's not the first time that something like this has happened. It's not the first time that something like this has happened in the NBA. Now, it was really, really rampant in the period where the NBA and the ABA were competing for players' affections and contracts. That was real what they were doing in terms of all the backdealing and stuff like that. Obviously, in the era of more expansive journalism, we haven't seen something to this level. The closest thing, and shout out to Sam Quinn for CBS Sports for his reporting on this, that we've seen to circumvention that was kind of like a seismic event in the league was when our boy Glenn Taylor, former owner of the Timberwolves, did a back deal with Joe Smith where they kept giving him 1-year contract successively to get his bird rights to give him a larger deal. For those that don't remember, the Timberwolves ended up having Joe Smith's contract voided. They were originally 5 first-round picks were taken. It was then demoted down to 3 first-round picks.
So that was a David Stern unilateral decision. The league has since clarified what the penalty is for kind of circumventing the salary cap.
Yeah.
So now the CBA does, like, they have a penalty for this because it needed to be expressly penalized because it was, I think it was a little bit more vague in what they were doing. It does go against the idea of sportsmanship, but it's morally wrong, but it wasn't legally wrong what Glenn Taylor had done. Now we have penalties that are in place. So the league can fine a team if they find that they have circumvented the salary cap and done something underhanded or shady. $3.5 million, I believe, for the first offense, $4.5 million if it's a second offense, and they can take up to 1 first-round draft pick, as far as if I read that article correctly.
Yes. So you're making my point for me, though, and that's where I was getting to is, as of right now, separate of Adam Silver, who has been a head of the organization, who, generally speaking, outside of a few things, people have taken umbrage with the suspension for Draymond and John Morant in terms of the length of time, has been very, very lenient with his punishment. All I expect is us to see some type of token punishment that's going to look severe enough in terms of on a surface level to kind of assuage the pearl clutching of the owners that all are probably guilty of this, at least some. We know for a fact that there's no way, not for a fact, we can assume with great certainty that there's no way in hell Stephen Ballmer's the only one that's been doing this. And we've heard other smoke, including with the Mavericks, with some stuff with Dirk and Chandler Parsons, and many other times. You alluded to some other stuff where it's like, now we know investigative people are going to be looking into this. But in the reality, what's Silver going to do to the Clippers? Like, what is the fallout of this? Are they going to void Kawhi's contract? Is Kawhi going to be suspended for some significant period of time? Are they going to tell Steve Ballmer to go home? It just doesn't, at the end of it, yes, the story feels big because of we've got to look into this kind of opaque situation that I think most people were aware was happening in some level. I just feel like a week from now, we're not even really going to care that much about this, to be honest. And that's the problem with it, because it's just a reality of the corruption that happens with collusion at the highest levels. And you already know where I feel about what I think is happening from a corruption standpoint with the NBA's leadership right now, because that's the other thing. If Silver has done some of the things that I believe that he's done, and some ownership groups are privy to that, it makes him a little bit more toothless in his ability in terms of punitive things and stuff like that if he wants to keep the owner on his side, which even if he isn't responsible for any improprieties, a commissioner is always still trying to make sure he's servicing the owners first.
Yeah, well, here's the way I think about it. So David Stern made sure whenever he penalized the Timberwolves, he made it such an egregious fine I don't think that was just about what the Timberwolves did. It was a warning shot to all the other teams.
Sending a message.
Yeah. So I think that Adam Silver, if this investigation is done and it is, found that they did do some wrongdoing, he has to do the exact same thing. He cannot allow this kind of behavior amongst organizations to slide. Because if he does, which there's already been instances in which we believe that this happened. So Jalen Brunson taking $100 million less than what he could have maxed out his contract at. The Anthony Davis one that I brought up was just some rumblings that I had heard that basically when he signed that 3-year, $186 million, it wasn't a full max with the Lakers. And that LeBron took care of him on the back end with the Space Jam movie. He used the money from Warner Brothers basically to give Anthony Davis what he didn't get in his contract, but also made sure that they had another max open slot next to LeBron that they could use to possibly pair with a third superstar. So those are some of the things that we know about, or there's hints, or there's whispers about. We need some clarity on what is allowed, and we need the league to investigate these contracts, because we can't have this be like tampering whenever free agency hits and all the players start signing at 6:01 right on the dot. Like, damn, how they negotiate that contract so fast? We can't have that happen with this.
Here's my bet. Silver's going to come out, and he'll probably, if he can, because again, some of this goes to people smarter than me about the legal jargon. Some of this is going to be kneecapped by the CBA, because Stern didn't have to function under parameters in the CBA pertaining to this, whereas Silver does. So obviously he has a litany of lawyers that I'm sure are trying to see what he can do. I would be willing to guarantee that there's going to be a significant financial fine. But with Steve Ballmer, again, what the hell does that mean? It'll probably, like, let's say he finds $10 million. They're not going to fine it against the cap. It's going to be against the organization. So it's going to be a slap on the hand there. And maybe they take away some draft picks. I'd be willing to bet that any draft pick they take is not going to be far enough in the future to hurt a team right now that's supposed to be good, old, and not using their draft picks to get better. It's going to be something that the appearance of it is going to be more punitive than the reality of it, and it's going to go away.
I mean, what picks do they have? They owe half of them to Oklahoma City.
This is all my point, though. Look,
they can't take much away from them. It's down the road.
There's been nothing in Silver's past to make me believe that he is going to drop the hammer, because that would be out of character. And I also just think that the reality is that this is just a secret getting out that's been hushed in back rooms for years. I think it's the same reason, like, you're not going to see there will be some owners who are not engaging in this, who are probably smaller market or lower value owners in terms of their own personal wealth and things like that will come out and say things because they're going to be upset about it being unfair to competitive balance. But there's going to be a lot of owners who are going to be conspicuous in their silence. This is not going to be a united front against Steve Ballmer thing. This is going to be, and look, I'm speaking very definitively just because I believe, based on how long I've been watching the NBA and an understanding. If I'm wrong, I'm totally willing to be wrong. I'll come up in here and be wrong. But I don't think this is going to be the seismic event that we're making it out to be right now. I think in 2 or 3 months, it will have absolutely no relevance to the NBA.
I just don't think that you can do something this egregious and not face an actual penalty for it. That's my opinion on it.
I think they'll get penalized. I just think it's going to be a very superficial penalty in the reality of it versus the appearance of it.
I respect that, and I completely look. I think it's because we're all starved for a little NBA news that we are. I mean, this is a fascinating story. It's an intriguing story. It's got a little intrigue to it, but I think we were all just so desperate for some NBA news that we all globbed onto this story because we needed something.
It's also, the sum is significant. Kawhi is always a figure who kind of perks up heads when it's something involving him, particularly in the off season. But you're right. It's a quiet time. I do want to say one other thing. I hope Ace Bailey is watching this and monitoring, because the Ace Bailey, Amari Cooper stuff and the parallels that people were talking about with what Uncle Dennis was doing in terms of back channels and trying to get his own payment and his own money. Like Ace, we don't know what Uncle Dennis's full involvement here was, but I'm sure he had his fingers all up in it. Make sure that the people handling you are not putting you in a position to leave you exposed and liable like this one may very well do to Kawhi.
Two last things before we move on. One, the Clippers have released a statement. They have denied any wrongdoing between Steve Ballmer, the organization, and Kawhi Leonard, and they called it patently, like basically patently absurd. And the second thing that I want to say is that Pablo Torre did announce when he was doing an interview that his next investigation will be into Jalen Brunson. So I just want to keep that in mind.
I want to touch on one thing. I'm sorry, Clippers. I know that you have to do whatever you can. You're probably in scramble mode, but the stipulation that the payments to Kawhi are only valid if he's with the Clippers feels like the smoking gun. There are no endorsement deals that are founded upon a player being directly associated and being like he can't even go to another team and he's still being paid by them. It's all null and void if he's not a Clipper. And that is the part of it that is like, how do you justify that as a normal endorsement deal, a normal payment? He wasn't getting paid to endorse anything. When you actually hear the particulars of the contracts, and I invite anybody who hasn't listened, listen to the Pablo Torre stuff.
I'm going to.
Yeah, if at any point after listening to that, you can believe the Clippers statement, then I think you're probably a Clippers fan. Like, let's be real. I just don't. It seems almost impossible, and it goes back to, I'm always of the person like, sure, Occam's razor, but when circumstances align in all these ways that just cannot happen by happenstance, at that point, I no longer believe in the simplest explanation. I believe in the one that's rife with the most corruption.
Well, I mean, if every denial didn't always proceed, everybody denies.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone denies. And then
deny. That's like lawyer 101, right?
Yeah. So why would I believe a statement when they put it out? Like, it's just, I'm gonna wait until the facts are laid out and the NBA completes its investigation. And they said they also welcome a law enforcement investigation in the Clippers statement. So I'm going to let it all play out, but I'm not going to sit here and not pretend like it's not funny. And I will state once again on the record that I will take a no-show job for considerably less, and you will get the exact same amount from me that you got from Kawhi Leonard. I'd take $28,000. I'm so much cheaper. Okay, let's move on. We got to do some WNBA talk before we get into the Eastern Central Division. But we got to do some WNBA talk. Aaron, where do you want to start? Lead us around the league.
I thought it'd just be a good opportunity to really talk about what's happened since we were last on here, because it's been a real wild week in terms of, we now have 5 teams that we know are in the playoffs. Minnesota and the Aces were already locked in last time we talked. Atlanta, Phoenix, and New York are all in as well. New York kind of backing their way in by getting they secured a playoff berth with a loss. That's always a fun one in their loss last night to the always plucky Valkyrie.
We don't have to go. The Liberty don't have to be a part of this conversation. They clearly are not trying to be a part of the playoff conversation.
I mean,
move on.
Considering the way this season is gone for much of the year, with you having the bragging rights for about the first half, the second half of the year, I'm reveling in the Liberty's frustrations. That being said, they're probably going to get right at the right time in terms of their health, and they're as dangerous as anybody there. Seattle, the Storm continue to be a tempestuous group. They win that insane game last week against the Lynx Thursday night, where they're down almost 20. They end up locking in defensively in the way that this team is capable of doing. And on that note, I just want to say, I don't think she's necessarily going to win it, but Gabby Williams has to be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not like breaking anything here or giving any kind of deep insight. It's not like me talking about Sanaya Rivers being a beast defensively, who also is. Check her out with Connecticut Sun if you don't.
Love Sanaya Rivers, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, just all arms and length and swallowing you up. She's fun to watch. But Gabby Williams, what she does defensively is phenomenal. She is such a talented defensive player, and what she's added to her offensive game. But in that Lynx game, what the story was Skylar Diggins going absolutely incendiary in the third quarter, including trying to get in a fight with, I think it was Nafisa Collier, but I'm not sure who on the Lynx bench. For those that don't know, Diggins is just a terrifying player when she gets hot, not just because she's on the Crazy Eyes All-Star. Her and Bobby Portis having a staring match would be pay-per-view worthy. But she is, when she gets hot and gets upset, both hot physically, emotionally, and in terms of a torrid run, she just can light it up. And she's coming into Vegas and done it a couple times. And that game against the Lynx was crazy. It was insane to watch her work that way. And then the Storm come out and lay an egg in the fourth quarter against the Sparks in a must-win for them as the Sparks are hanging on to playoff contention. This Storm team is just like, I can't imagine what being a fan of this group this year has been like, because it has to just feel so all over the place. Like, oh, I'm excited about Dominic Malongo. What happened to Eza Magbior? Oh, we got Brittany Sykes. Has anybody seen Skylar Diggins? Oh, Gabby Williams is playing great. Oh, we just lost 6 in a row. It's just, it is the weirdest season to try to track for a team.
They're truly a trick or treat team. Every time I tune into a Seattle Storm game, I have no idea what team I'm getting.
Yeah,
but it makes them like. It reminds me of like the Jameis Winston 30 touchdown, 30 interception season.
Yeah,
where
5,000 passing yards.
5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 picks. I was like, in my mind, that was the most exciting player in football when he was playing that season. I was like, you never know what Jameis is going to be. That's the 2025 Seattle Storm.
Yeah, they're the type of team, much like Jameis, where they can either win the game for you or lose the game for you. So, like, if you're just an agnostic, they're really exciting because they're going to keep it interesting going both directions.
You have no idea what you're going to get game to game. It's wild to watch.
To your point, that Sparks game, they come out, lighten it up from the three. Not a thing that they do regularly. Nyeko Yumike starts out 5 of 5. They hit 10 threes in the first half. The second half, they go 3 of like 18 from the three, I think is what they finished, and shoot themselves out of the game. I've given up the idea of them as like a playoff disruptor at this point. I really think like between Seattle, Indiana, and Los Angeles, whatever team is the team out, those other two teams I don't foresee giving. I say that being a little scared, saying that if the Storm play the Aces in a 7-2 matchup, I'm not going to love that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Do you have a guess about which two of those three are going to end up being in playoff position? Are you leaning one way or another, or is it just kind of a toss up?
If I had to bet, if Caitlin Clark's not back, and even if she is back, considering what a lightning brand or she's become. Lightning rod, she's become for drama over the last couple of weeks. Like, I think the Fever end up falling out of this.
I think it's too late in the season for her to be coming back and being like she has a little bit of gravity to her that people have to guard her and kind of eye where she is on the floor. But she's been out for so long, for months now, that there's no way that she's playing more than 15 minutes a night. And even when she's on the floor, what kind of player are we getting? She hasn't had actual game run in months.
Yeah,
her conditioning and her timing is going to be way off.
Yes, she is still one of the best passers in the league for an offense and can definitely use
she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that connectivity with her teammates because she hasn't been playing with them. Yeah, she's going to be out of rhythm even when she does come back.
We say that, and like by game 2, she could also drop like a 30 burger just because of the type of player she is.
She could also have a 30 turnover game.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think right now Seattle's playing well enough. They've won 6 of their last 9 after losing 6 in a row. So credit to them for kind of balancing themselves. That includes wins on the road against Atlanta and Minnesota, which are huge wins. The rest of those other 4 victories are against kind of the bottom dwellers of the league. There's some Connecticut and Chicago in there. And I think Los Angeles is playing well enough. Like they're 5-5 over their last 10, but they have. I trust who they are, particularly in the fourth quarter with De'Erica Hamby, who is just such a phenomenal player. As an under talked about performer on both ends. The way that she was abusing that Seattle team in her post game, she has this Adrian Dantley thing to her where everything's kind of below the rim and footwork base and toughness. But man, she puts it to bigs in a way you don't expect an undersized player without elite athleticism to really do it in the old school way. I would bet on the Sparks right now to be the team that comes out of that. Excuse me, the Sparks in Seattle. I think the Sparks are in Seattle's 7. We've got 4 more games to go. We'll see what happens, but it's been, it's been.
I do feel for the Fever. Their injury luck this season has not been great. I mean, they've Lexi Holmes is out there playing with 2 black eyes and a busted nose, and she's one of the healthier players on their team.
Yeah, she's the only Lecce left.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aaliyah Boston's like been the most consistent player they've had all season.
Yeah, I mean, she's an all-star every year for them. But
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but like, never have they needed her consistency more than they needed it this year.
Sydney Colson goes out for the years in addition. Ari McDonald, they make a trade for her. She's playing well. She goes out. It's a snake bitten season, and
Yeah,
I feel
Sophie
terribly for the
Cunningham's
Fever.
down, and yeah, it's just been rougher and rougher
If
for
I'm
the.
honest, like if I was obviously if I'm the fan base, I want to be able to get in, but it would be to their benefit for this season to just kind of end. And I don't mean that as like a give it up kind of crappy way. I just think a playoff run isn't going because it's not going to be a run. It's going to be one playoff
It's going to be
appearance as a
brief.
beat up
Yeah.
team. Just go, get the better draft pick, kind of reconsolidate, come back into next year healthy. You have what you need on your roster right now. Now, I don't know enough about what their free agency situation looks like, but you should
No.
feel good about yourself next year. You're fine. Some of the players that you needed to see take a step forward, like you said, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Halls played very well. Sophie Cunningham was good in her capacity. You got the parts that you need. Just get healthy.
What was Sophie? Was she shooting like 45% from three?
Yeah.
I mean, she was.
I don't know what she shot on the season, but I know.
I thought she was at like 43, 44, 45%, somewhere in that range. I mean, that kind of shooting is valuable no matter where you go. And then, you add in the defensive metrics and yeah.
She was doing her best for her Bill Laimbeer cosplay, like a stretch big who's going to piss everybody off.
Hey man, there's a place in the W for that kind of player, and
there's a place in every sports for that kind of player.
That's exactly right.
She finished the season at 43% from three. Yeah.
Yeah, please, everybody stay tuned because we are definitely going to have some all WNBA podcasts once we're done with our NBA previews. Whenever the WNBA playoffs, they're just around the corner. We're going to be covering matchups. We're going to be talking about our favorite series that we have. We're going to do some predictions. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot of WNBA stuff. Quick question to you. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? And did you want to touch on Angel Reese?
I mean, we can talk about it really quick. Do you want to give a quick summation of what she said today?
Yeah, just a quick summation. Again, this was to the Chicago Tribune. So the initial statement that she made was that she said that she would obviously like to, and please, I am paraphrasing. I'm not reading direct quotes here. She did say that she would like to finish her career with the same team, with Chicago, but based on whatever decisions that they make, maybe that's out of her control and she'll have to make a decision based on what is best for her. She wants greater players. She wants better facilities. To be fair, the Chicago Sky were voted the worst ran organization in the WNBA, I think in a players poll, which is obviously not great. But to their credit, they are also building a 40,000 square foot, $38 million facility for the Chicago Sky that is supposed to open in 2026. So they are addressing some of the things that she talked about. And then she also basically had a demand for great players. Her quote was, great players, and do they want to sign here? And why would they want to sign here unless we show them something? And we need great players to make the same steps. And I believe the quote that she said finally was, we can't let the same shit happen this year or next year as we did this year.
There was also a little bit of a, people interpret as a dig at Courtney Vandersloot when they asked her about Sloot when she said, we need younger players. Look, and she mentioned Courtney Vandersloot's injury. I don't really think that and then she made a comment about Tyler Marsh needing to coach harder. Here's my feeling. There's a couple different things, and you and I had talked about this. The first one being, this is obviously the venting frustration of a superstar, and in the greater kind of context, it just felt to me like the same type of stuff we hear from Luka, LeBron, just name every superstar who's ever been frustrated after a losing season. And they normally have some type of diatribe that's kind of construed within this frustration, change, and me trying to kind of weaponize my position in the franchise as a mechanism for affecting this change. And so the way that people were, of course, aggrandizing it, and she went scorched earth on her teammates, like, get out of here with that lazy, crappy stuff. Now, The other part of it is Angel Reese needs to mature. We're at the point now where what she says, how she says it, and when she says it can no longer be excused by emotions, frustration, or things like that. It can be part of the packaging, and it's allowed for us to say that, but it is also completely valid to criticize her for this in timing, who she put kind of in the crosshairs, and how this is going to proceed when the season isn't even over yet. These are the type of comments that you make at the end of the season, the last game interview. You guys still have to lace them up for a few more, and you are now directly saying things that even teammates who you weren't necessarily poking at could misinterpret. What she said wasn't completely wrong. Tyler Marsh is a first-year coach. He is a very passive coach. I got to see it when he was here with the Aces. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad approach, but it's very different from what they had last year with Witherspoon, who to me shouldn't have been fired anyways, but that's a whole separate conversation. But Teresa Witherspoon was a much more kind of in-your-face, active and engaged coach than Tyler Marsh is. That can just be an Angel Reese thing. Overall, this doesn't bother me in the aggregate, and it's fine. It's just kind of a superstar being a superstar. This feels like the quotes that we've heard from a million different people. She needs to come back out and correct some of it, and maybe make subtle apologies just to smooth out the rough edges of the statements. But I felt like people be like, like, yes, in the succession of Angel Reese stuff, it's worth throwing into that conversation. But in general, it's not that huge of a deal.
So I will say this, like, so we're talking about like whether this would be a big deal if an NBA player said this. So I'm trying to imagine, say, like a second year Anthony Edwards is like, Mike Conley's old as shit, and our coach, he doesn't really coach very hard, and we could use some better players on this team. People would lose their fucking minds. So for Angel Reese, with her stature in the league and her stature on social media and just a personality in general, her saying these things it's a story. It's a big story. And it's a little bit disrespectful to her coach, to the organization, to her teammates. So what you said about maturity is incredibly important. I think it's something that I know she's had media training. I know that she's knows how to talk to the media, and she also knows exactly what she's doing whenever she says these things. She's trying to light a fire under the organization, but she went about it in such a ham-fisted way that I feel that like it's detrimental to the case that she's trying to make, because she's making the story about herself and not about the Chicago Sky as an organization, which that should be the story. But what's going to happen is, just like you said, everyone's going to point at her and be like, look at her. She's so selfish. She's so entitled. She's so greedy. She's a second-year player. What has she done? What has she ever won? It becomes about Angel Reese. And that is a factor of who she is, but it's also a factor of how people read these stories. So she just needs to be a little bit smarter. She's not wrong.
She does need to be smarter. I also have not had a chance to sit down and watch the entire interview, and I'm always going to be skeptical of when we see these quotes kind of put together in an aggregation model for a story where things seem parsed. Excuse me. So my curiosity is what question preceded some of these statements, because the framing of the question is very important for how the answer was provided. And so, sure, maybe she just went on a rant. Maybe this was a discursive figure. I doubt that. I'm sure that there was probably a few questions that were leading questions that came. And so that's also why, for me, I need to know the entirety of it before I'm willing to do the thing that so many people want to do right now. And part of it is, like you said, it's who Angel Reese is. It's who Angel Reese is in the organization. I do want to touch back. Like, we have seen this with second-year players who are superstar-level players. You want to go back and mine some of Luka's comments in year 2 with Dallas, you can find stuff that isn't far off from this. Like, we're not that far removed from seeing guys who are, no.
Quick thing. Is that who you want to be compared to as far as like not wanting the reputation of being a sulking, like bad teammate, bad energy, bad body
Those,
language
but
guy.
those are two separate questions because you just said what would happen if we saw it in the NBA, and I'm just
Sure,
giving you an
sure.
example. Like we have, and we've seen it recently with guys.
I mean, did
And
he
in fact,
trash Rick Carlisle? I'm not saying that
no,
Chicago's
I mean
coach
we
is
can
Rick
even go through
Carlisle,
some of
but
the stuff Anthony Edwards has said in the last 2 years and come up with some pretty like eye-opening things that he has said about
yeah,
like
I mean,
using him as an example. That is part of what happens when you're the superstar and you're under the scrutiny and you're the identity of the organization, even as a second-year player. All of that being said, you and I are in full agreement. She needs to be better. She needs to be more mature. And she just needs to be a little bit more tailored with how she goes
yeah,
about this stuff. And that may be unfair to her, but it's the reality of the weight of being the face of the organization.
that's
It's just
exactly
her
right.
job.
And she's one of the faces of the WNBA. They've done a great job.
Absolutely.
They've definitely put her on every commercial and talking about the league and the future and about, the next crop of stars. She's one of them. And she's had an amazing season, had 22 double doubles this year, set some WNBA records. So she has a right to say what she wants to say. I'm just saying be smarter about the way in which you say it.
And I do want to say, when you see what the Sky did this last offseason and the roster they entered the year with, I completely get her being frustrated because they did not. The idea, look, I don't know enough about what happened with Kennedy Carter. Obviously, she is just a complete issue in the locker room, but you got rid of your second best player and scorer and replaced her with Courtney Vandersloot has a phenomenal career. If you thought Courtney Vandersloot was going to come in even as a healthy player and change the direction of this organization without giving any other real guard play consideration, I mean, they are bereft of talent on the perimeter. That's just a reality.
Yeah.
They traded Marina Mayberry last year, didn't get much for it. Ariel Atkins, has been about the only other positive sign as a player that can dribble the basketball for them. The frustration is valid, but of course,
Yes.
neither of us are trying to invalidate the frustration. I just wanted to say, for anybody that's not aware, that Chicago team, they did a bad job this offseason.
It's bad
They
roster
did.
construction.
Yeah, it was bad
100%.
roster
And
construction.
also some bad injury luck, which does happen.
Yeah,
but this team was not built to succeed this year, but they have some pieces going forward. They have Angel Reese as one of the cornerstone pieces, and then they
Camila
can
Cardoso.
Yeah, and Cardoso's great, and they can see what they have with some of the other players, but they also have plenty of opportunities to draft new players and build something from the ground up. So it's just your starting point. Not everybody's going to turn it around from year one to year two. Obviously, Chicago hasn't had the best reputation as an organization. Neither the Bulls nor the Sky. Just to be
Hey, we're talking WNBA. We're going to get to
I like to throw some shots.
We're going to get to the Bulls right now.
I was trying to do a transition, goddammit. I was trying to do a transition about the Bulls in the Sky, and we are going to go right into the
I murdered that transition. My fault. Just
It's okay. It's okay. Ah, man. See, I'm working on these things. I do this for you guys.
Yeah.
But
my bad, y'all.
So what Aaron and I decided to do whenever we're down to our last two divisions in the East and in the West, and we wanted to save the two teams that were in the championship this past season. We want to save their divisions for last. So now we are in the East. We are in the Central Division. So we are talking about the Bulls, the Pacers, the Pistons, the Bucks, and I'm missing one. I'm missing one.
The Pacers, the Bucks,
and am I losing? Oh, the Cavs.
The Cavs, yeah. Well, and of course, because I'm like, yeah, what is it? What is it? Yeah, that was funny. Okay. Anyways.
Well, I mean, it's just the Cavs kind of forgot that they were in the playoffs last year too. So we're going to get into that whole conversation. But you and I, we agree. We talked about this before we came on. This is maybe one of the most competitive divisions in basketball.
Sneaky good division. 4 of the 5 teams made the playoffs outright, and then the Bulls made the play-in.
Absolutely, yeah. So they were 2 games under 500.
Yeah, so you had 4 teams above 500, and the Bulls who were flirting with 500, and all 5 teams technically played postseason basketball, even though play-in doesn't count. But the Bulls had an opportunity, and they did what they do.
It counts to me, damn it! It counts to me.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you got. I mean, when you go through this, you have the first, the 4th, the 6th, the 5th, and the 9th best teams in the West were all in the same division. So sneaky good. And
in the East, we're all in that.
In the East, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we are going to start like we do with every single one of these. Whenever we are going to start with the team that we think is going to finish last in the division and work our way up to the team that we think is going to finish the best. And for this division, super fun. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So, Aaron, who do you have at the bottom of this division?
So I still have the Chicago Bulls at the bottom of the division.
Uh-huh.
I it's interesting because Indiana is going to be a weird team, and we'll talk about them later. But for right
Yes.
now, separate of the fact that the Bulls are just kind of consistently at this same level every single year in terms of what their overall record is, I I think they're going to be better next year. I don't think they're going to be substantively better in a way that will move them much in an East that should be a little bit better. For those that, they've averaged 39 games, 39 wins a season over the last 3 years. I have them a touch better than that. We'll get to that later. Something I do want to bring up with Chicago, and I think it's important, is for as maligned as this organization has been, and fairly so in terms of their reticence, reluctance, complacency, whatever, this team last year substantively played significantly different brand of basketball than we had seen from them prior. And that is a credit to Billy Donovan, who does not get enough acknowledgement for his creativity as a coach in terms of his ability to coach so many different brands and styles of basketball, going all the way back to the Thunder. Like, he has been a coach that's shown a lot of ingenuity and ability to change. I don't think Billy Donovan's one of those great minds. I think he's where he is in terms of his consideration as a coach overall is fair. But this Bulls team last year was, what were they? They were second in pace. Only Memphis played in a faster pace. They were third in made and attempted threes. And when you look at the talent on this roster, Vucevic being as good of a shooting big as he is really helps with that. But in general, this is not a group that you see and go, oh man, this team should be making a lot of threes, especially with the shadow of Kevin Huerter, or the ghost of Kevin Huerter being whatever he's been since he joined this group. They were third in assists per game. They were 22nd the year before. They were third in fast break points per game. Like, they got out and played a really fun, exciting brand of ball. And it's because Billy knew that they were small, that they had a lot of guards, and they weren't going to be able to defend. So he found a way to weaponize this team's talents, which is athleticism, playmaking, and speed, and did it in a way that made them a team that, despite everything people want to say about Chicago, they played like they were fun to watch last year to me. Like, they were in games. They made games weird. They made games fun. They have some guys that I really liked. They have some contracts that I don't like so much, but there's a lot of like plucky, fun players in this group. They probably don't have a superstar, and that's really the ringing indictment of what this team kind of can be. And obviously Arturas had that really weird comment about how you can build title teams in several different ways, including no superstar and a lot of really good players, which
that has never been the case in the history of basketball.
The Detroit Pistons probably have the closest argument that you could ever make, and they had a superstar defensive player and an Finals MVP,
and several Hall of Famers, even though they weren't like top flight first ballot Hall of Famers, but these guys are all
two Hall of Famers, and again, the guy who won the Defensive Player of the Year 4 times. Like, this team doesn't have that.
Yeah, exactly. And they also had an identity in which they could hang their hats on. Now, that's something that Billy Donovan has always tried to do. Doesn't matter when he was with the Thunder, or now that he's with the Bulls, or when he was with Florida. He likes defensive-minded players. And he likes a defensive-minded identity with his teams. Now, they only finished 19th in defensive rating last year, but that's a real testament. The fact that they were, a middle 10 team, not a bottom 10. They were a middle 10 team with the personnel that they have, with Vucevic at center. Do you want to talk about a ghost? Patrick Williams, who I don't know where the hell that guy's been. And then you got a rookie starting in Buzelis, Josh Giddey, who's never been known as a defender, and then undersized Kobe White. So you want to talk about a guy who could get a team to not be with those players? That should be a bottom 5 defense in the league every year, and he got him to 19th.
I think you're being a little kind, but your point remains. Like, look, they were 19th. For the teams that want to constitute themselves, they were basically where they sort of should be, considering what the rest of the league looked like. But you're right. In terms of the personnel, it's not great defensive personnel.
No.
Now, that being said, Ayo is a very high-level defensive player.
I was going to talk about him.
Patrick Williams, for all the issues with him, is still a good defensive player. He's not what he should be. And the Patrick Williams experience, you want to talk about, I gave crap to Jalen Green for basically flatlining in terms of development. Patrick Williams has been in the league for 5 years now. His average has been within 1.2 points per game, the same from his rookie year to his fifth year, and it's never varied. The lowest he ever averaged was 9. The most he ever averaged was 10.2. Last season, after getting the contract that nobody understood, he decided to explode for 39.7% from the field and 35.3% from three, which were both career worst in his fifth season after getting paid. I am
competing with nobody.
I have been and giving a player, like, how do you get the player option on the fifth year? That is
5 years, $90 million. You think he's going to pick that up? I wonder.
I think he might. I think he might. Yeah, him and Joel Embiid will give each other a phone call. Should I do this? What do you think? Maybe I should test some art. Nah.
Okay, let's talk about what we like on this team, because there's a lot of things that obviously you and I don't like. But so second year Buzelis, very excited about that. Like to see his development. You already talked about Tsumu, who I think is one of those jack of all trades, master of none, but like everybody gets that phrase wrong. That's actually a good thing.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Better to be a master.
Better than a master of one.
Of one, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Ayo Dosunmu does everything well. Is he great at anything? No, not particularly, but he's good at everything. And he's the kind of player that you want to have.
He has improved every year in a way that is really important. He's the perfect kind of guard in a 3 or 4 guard rotation because of his size and his strength, and he can handle the ball. He can shoot it a little bit. He can defend up. And with their grouping, it's funny because they've been shopping him in deals, including him being floated in the Kuminga thing, which, God, if they traded for Jonathan Kuminga and still had Patrick Williams, I might have to just forfeit any type of fandom for this group in general. I cannot watch that team. But Ayo he's really attractive when you have to compensate for the liabilities of their other 2 guards and the way that he can play with both of them.
Very complimentary guard for sure.
Yeah. While you're talking about good stuff, like going back to Modis from January 29th on, in 35 games, he had double-digit scoring in 28 of 35 games. He averaged 13.3 points per game on 49, 37, 82 splits on 4.7 three-point attempts per game. If he is that player, I'm going to give you my hyperbolic take right now.
Okay.
I have Modis Buzelis finishing in the top 3 in most improved players next year.
From the 1 to 2 year jump. Interesting.
Yes. Because I fully expect, one, we've seen it enough with guys with what they need, and because of the marginalization of their other wing players, Patrick Williams obviously just not being a guy, I think Modis Buzelis can average somewhere between 16 and 18 points per game next season. And on top of that, he led the team in blocks last year. Now, his defensive stuff will probably have to take a step back as he steps up offensively, but there is nothing I've seen in his game that doesn't lead me to believe that there is much more improvement. He was so confident in Summer League and looked so comfortable, and he plays an infectious brand of basketball because he loves playing basketball, but you can also tell he takes it very seriously. That convergence to me is usually the perfect cocktail of emotional energy that you want for a player that's going to be good in the league if they have the physical skills that this guy has. The tools are there. If the shooting maintains, and I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter, but if he shoots 37 or 38% from 3, that's serious for him. I expect a big jump for him, and I think he's going to be really exciting to watch for them this season.
The big storyline for the Bulls this season has been the contract extension for Josh Giddey, which is still dragging out and dragging on. As far as the last that I've heard is that they still are very far apart on where Josh Giddey imagines himself. I believe that he thinks that he's more of a $30 million a year player. I think the Bulls are looking something in the $20 million a year range. That's a pretty wide chasm. How do you think that gets resolved, or does it get resolved before the season starts?
I think it eventually gets resolved in some type of scenario that's a 2+1, and we've talked about it enough times.
Yeah, I'll say we don't need to rehash.
Well, no, but I just mean that part of what's happening is all of these restricted free agents are waiting for somebody to sign because they're going to set the market. It's what team blinks first. The Giddey thing is kind of wild, though. I'm not a big Giddey guy, although I do fully respect what he's done. Do you know what Josh Giddey's point or his averages were once Zach LaVine got traded?
I have that somewhere. I swear I cannot find my notes, but I have it. I know what you're. But
I
please read it
I got
off.
it for you. So in the 24 games after Zach LaVine was dealt, he put up 20 points, 9.5 rebounds, 8.3 assists, 1.4 steals, and zero point 0.9 blocks. So he was good for almost 2.5 stocks per game as a player that we don't constitute as a very good defensive player on 50, 46, 80. I don't know what Josh Giddey is, but there are not a lot of players in NBA history that go on a productivity run with that much efficiency. So I can understand why his representation's going, look, this is what I was when you gave me the reins to the organization. He had that crazy game that, like, everybody needs a moment. He had that moment in that Lakers game where he makes that wild three. The leadership stuff seemed to be a lot better with him. There's questions about his kind of commitment to the organization in general, but I think that's a little unfair to him considering the circumstances that led to him being there. Dealing with the stuff that came out last year with the underage girl feeding into a contract season and all the rest of that. Like, this guy is also playing for his professional earnings. He doesn't owe you anything.
Yeah.
And this is my hearsay. This is of course, I have no intel on this at all where any of this stuff is concerned. It's just based on
you and I,
things we've read.
you and I do our best to not bring in the personal stuff, but it's like impossible to not factor in something that like that big, something that impactful, not affecting your season. He was booed on the road at every single game that
Yeah.
where he wasn't in Chicago. And then you also have to factor in the fact that he was traded from the team that eventually won the championship. And he was traded to a team that, as you said, finished ninth last year and kind of struggled to find their identity. And wasn't a great team for most of the season. They had their moments, especially after the LaVine trade. But it's just really difficult for Josh Giddey. Just imagine the situation he's in. And now he has to basically justify his demand for a new contract and to get paid what he thinks he's worth. Now, is there a middle ground here where he gets 4 years and $100 million? Would that be something that would upset you if he got that kind of money or that kind of contract?
I'm perfectly okay with the idea.
Is 30 too high?
I mean, it's a matter that's in the eye of the beholder, which is the tough thing. What do the Chicago Bulls think Josh Giddey is right now, or do they feel like they're playing hardball because they have the money? They're in a financial situation where right now their total cap, they're 25th in the league. So this is really now. I think there's a couple different things that are happening here. One, the Bulls have been maligned so often for some of their deals that they're trying to play this smart. I also think that they want to be able to get to re-sign Kobe White. And if you set the number too high at Josh Giddey, when you come back to the bargaining table with Kobe White, is that a backcourt that is a $60 or $70 million a year backcourt? And we've talked about that
That's
before.
a problem.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, but I want to real quickly. I want to push back on them trying to make smart trades because first of all, they traded.
I didn't say trades. I meant deals for contracts, negotiations.
Yeah,
I was not talking about trades here. I just meant signing players because of some of the signing issues they'd had when we think about like the going all the way back. But even in this group, when we talk about Patrick Williams most recently,
they did just trade Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro. Straight up.
Again, yeah. I'm not even talking about deal trades at all. I'm just talking about contract negotiations.
I understand. Okay.
But it's also weird because it's the same group that gave Trey Jones $8 million a year fully guaranteed, which felt a little high for him. So
I don't know what that was for.
Yeah.
And they're also paying. They also took on Zach Collins' contract, which is just that's a bottomless.
That's pit. Another one of the trade ones.
I know, but I'm just saying they're taking on the contract. That's the money that they're footing.
Just to kind of put a bow on it, 4 for 100 with player incentives seems reasonable to me. And really, if you even told me 4 for 110 and let it be a 3+1 with player incentives, maybe where it gets it up to like 120, so they can kind of find the balance between the two. I think that seems totally justifiable for both player and organization. I can understand Josh Giddey again looking at some of these other guys and be like, How am I not worth more than Emmanuel Quickly? And I know we go back to the Emmanuel Quickly well all the time, but it's just because it's the easiest one for me to kind of come off the cuff with. But there's plenty of deals. We can even,
Well, I mean, we were talking about this with the Kaminga thing. We're like, they're pointing at these contracts that happened right when the new CBA came into clearer focus. So these were contracts that were given out that like were basically something you would have found under the old CBA. And now teams are much smarter in how they're spending their money. We've seen them kind of pull back from just offering these, 4-year, $120 million, contracts. Now it's like, hey, we take 2 for 40. We take 3 for 60 because that's where we're at.
It's like trying to be upset that the value of your house was less after 2008, and you're looking at your neighbor and you're like, they sold it for this much in 2006.
Yeah,
it was a whole different ball game. Like, we're looking at a different landscape. Go blame Fannie Mae if you want, but you ain't getting that anymore. And that's kind of, in general, these are restricted free agents, and it's easy for us to say. I don't mean to like diminish these guys' value, but that's where we're at. They have to come to the realization that, yes, under the other old parameters,
you would have gotten this deal.
Yeah, your belief system and your feeling of your valuation is fair, but we are no longer working under the old rules. So get over it.
All right, prediction time. I've got the Bulls at 37-45.
So I am kind of bullish on Chicago, but I'm breaking out the dad jokes today. I don't see any reason why this team shouldn't be better than last year's group. So I have them at 42-40.
I think it's less about are they better than the last year's group? Or I know the East is down, but I think that there's a lot of teams that are in their range. There's a lot, especially in this division. I mean, the Pacers are down from where they were. I think you're going to see the Bucks are down from where they were last season based on just different constructions of their lineup. So I think there's a lot of teams in this kind of like middle to like it's kind of like good to average range. There's very few teams at the top of the East, but I think there's a pack in the middle. And I just think that like if you look at a team, which we're going to talk about a lot of them, but like Milwaukee has a much better number. Like if you're going to compare those teams, they're these rosters are somewhat comparable. They have Giannis.
Yeah, but I mean
they don't have a Giannis.
But ultimately I have them finishing basically in the conference and in the division pretty much where they have.
Where they are, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so even though I agree with you, I don't think that there was enough movement in the pack that they're kind of in.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe Atlanta, obviously, but then there's the conversation as to whether or not Boston's going to have a fall to earth. That I just 41-41, 39-43, like that, they're going to be in that same range again, at the risk of being redundant, because of what your point. These other teams are going to be better than them, but they are still significantly better than the Washingtons and the who are some of the Brooklyns and of the world, the Charlottes. Like they'll be above those groups.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not putting them in that group at all.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, I think we're having the same conversation, basically. Yeah. It's just we're talking about a couple wins different. But I do think that
we're 5 wins apart. So I mean, this is we've talked about this before. 6 is about the biggest gap we've had with any of these teams, and this is pretty close to that. So so now it gets interesting because now you have to pick the 4th best team. And I made you go first, and I knew that you were going to say Chicago. But now here's where it gets a little fascinating, and I kind of think I know where you're going with this. So do you have the Bucks finishing 4th in this division?
No, it's Indiana Pacers.
Oh, yeah, the Indiana. I thought I had you. I thought I had you pegged on this one.
Nope. And I'll give you justification when we get to Milwaukee. But it's
let's start with Indiana. That's who I had 4 too. Yeah. I thought I had you.
It's got to be the Pacers. Look, coming on the heels of a 50-32 season with a magical playoff run, but losing not just their best player, but the best table setter in the NBA in terms of getting guys into position to score with an offensive group that's going to struggle, I think, to find ways to score. But Rick Carlisle loves coaching this type of team. And I don't care what Rick Carlisle may or may not say in public. Like this type of group that has enough talent to be scrappy, but also has like enough kind of weird, funky parts where he gets to flex his genius basketball brain. This group is going to be a nightmare for teams to play on a nightly basis because they're going to be better defensively than they were last year. Um, the Miles Turner, maybe not better. Let me correct that. They're going to be more consistent over the course of the entire season because they didn't find their defensive footing till really the second half of last year. Losing Miles Turner, no matter what, this guy, a two-time block champion, that's going to hurt them. Tyrese Halliburton became a much better defensive player as the season went on, but he was a defensive liability for so long. They're going to throw out some defensive units that are going to frustrate the hell out of people. Their projected starting lineup right now is Andrew Nemhard, Ben Shepherd, Aaron Nesmith, Jarris Walker, and Isaiah Jackson. I don't know where the offense
is Pascal Siakam not in their starting?
Oh, excuse me, Pascal Siakam. Yeah, disregard Jarris Walker. Sorry, I typed that up wrong. And Pascal Siakam, excuse me, and Isaiah Jackson. And I do think Jarris Walker may actually, if they do some small ball five stuff and get kind of weird and creative, because
I'm still really high on Jarris Walker. Like, I know he hasn't quite lived up to the billing of where he was drafted and what I think they projected him to be. But I think, again, you're talking about a team that has very little expectations. So I think that if Rick Carlisle gets to like open up this playbook and be like, hey, man, this is I was going to make a point, but it kind of feels like I'm shitting on the Pacers, and I don't mean to. This is a team that doesn't want to go into the tax. So they've proven that consistently throughout. So if they could make Jarris Walker replace Obi Toppin, so they aren't playing two guys who kind of have overlapping skills and overlapping player identities, they're obviously going to do that and use Obi Toppin as a trade chip because Obi Toppin's a good player and he's well liked in Indiana, but this is a team clearly that doesn't care how much they like you. They'll let you walk in free agency if they offer you $1 more if another team does. Doesn't matter how long you've been there.
To touch on Jarris Walker, last 10 games of the season, he averages 11-5 on 53, 54, and 80 on 2.2 threes made per game. I think that he's going to be a player that's going to be a double-digit scorer as a stretch big. I'm not as big on him, but this season I expect for him to have the type of year where people are going to be much more impressed with him, and he's going to be worked into the offense in some interesting ways. Playing him and Siakam together because of Siakam's post-up game and Walker's stretch ability is going to provide some tough things for defensive staff to work around, and they've got good size. It's going to be a group that's just going to come at you from a lot of different attack angles and do a lot of weird different stuff and give you a lot of different looks. The addition of Jay Huff, again, another player that kind of adds some weird, interesting versatility to their offense. And I think Benedict Mathurin is going to be – this was going to be my other hot take.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably going to average close to 20 points per game this season.
Yeah. I don't even think that's like that hot of a take. I think that – I mean, like for a team that's going to be so playmaker deficient – they need guys who are going to be able to create their own shot. Benedict Mathurin, for all of his faults, is a guy that can get buckets. Cam Thomas is another player in his same vein, a guy that can just get you buckets. Is he creating for anybody else? No, not really. But, that's not what he's there to do. You need someone to score. You need someone to get you into your offense. You need someone to, be an athletic freak and get you in transition. Benedict Mathurin's all of those things. And he's not afraid of anybody. He's playing for a contract.
Playing for a contract. There it is. 16.7 points per game last season. He's never played 30 minutes. We expect him to cross the 30-minute threshold and get a lot more looks and opportunity. And he's playing for that money. And anybody who knows Benedict Mathurin, that dude is hungry. He's got dog all up in him. So he is going to
one of the best instigators in the league.
Yeah, and his story is an incredible story. I mean, he's had to overcome a lot of adversity through his toughness. And this is, I think, going to be a really good year for him to show what he can be. Now, much like Cam Thomas, he might also be exposed in some ways as he gets more of this opportunity because of the limitations of his game. But
yeah, his efficiency might drop. That's just kind of what happens whenever you level up in minutes and whenever you are the key focus of an offense. But you know what's great about whenever you're a playoff team that can go 11 deep is whenever you lose two of those players, you're still 9 players deep. The rest of this team is still back. I mean, you've still got Nemhard, Nesmith, McConnell, Ben Shepherd, Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson's coming back from injury, Jarris Walker, like you already mentioned, Obi Toppin. This is a team that, like, they built themselves, their identity was based around toughness, around their, like, maybe being limited in their defensive skill, but like also like works their ass off. Name another team in the playoffs that was guarding full court. Oklahoma City wasn't even doing that. They were trying to save their guys' legs. Indiana, they're not afraid to play this gritty, dirty style, and I think that's going to get them some wins throughout this season. Just because, like TJ McConnell, damn near won a couple of finals games by himself. I mean, people tend to forget this that Jalen Williams went on an interview podcast and was like, "God, that guy was so annoying. We couldn't stop him." And it's TJ McConnell, a guy who can't even shoot, a white guy that can't shoot threes.
Yeah, facts.
I'm the fan.
Yeah, they're gonna be that type of team that nobody wants to play on an off night, right? When somebody's coming in on a back-to-back, you're gonna be so pissed off that you have to contend with them just coming after you, getting into your jerseys, digging into you. They're gonna piss people off because they're gonna play kind of a plucky brand of basketball.
That's right.
I could be wrong and the offense could be anemic. There is the potential for that because you really do have to find out where you're going to get a lot of your scoring. But they played such a synergistic brand of offensive basketball in terms of finding each other, playing the right way, playing for the right shot. Even though you lose kind of the orchestra, the composer of that in Tyrese Halliburton, I don't expect them to all of a sudden forget how to play that beautiful offensive music. It'll still be there.
If I'm Rick Carlisle, I'm sitting Nembhard and Neesmith down in front of Derek White, Drew Holiday tape from the Celtics. And just being
Neesmith
like,
doesn't need to see that tape. He played with some of those guys.
Yeah.
But,
well, I just want them to sit and be like, look, neither one of these guys are traditional point guards. Neither one of these guys are like made for the role that they're put in. But look what they're doing. Look how they play off of each other, and look how they set everybody else up for success. They're non-traditional point guards, and you're going to have to do a lot of stuff that maybe you're not super comfortable with, that, getting us into our offense and being more of a table setter and more of a pass first guy, but you still got the green light to shoot as much as you damn well please.
Well, and Aaron Neesmith, this has been talked to death, and everybody got to see it in that crazy Knicks game. But Aaron Neesmith used to be a high-level scorer. That's how he came into the NBA out of Vanderbilt. Yeah. And so I'm interested to see what they'll work in to maybe activate him a little bit more, see if we can maybe if there's a jump in his scoring. There's not a lot of depth to his game, but because of his toughness and his movement, like, why can't this guy kind of be the new age version of Rip Hamilton a little bit on the offensive end? Not with that level of production, but I do expect him to be able to do some more things now because he's going to have the opportunity, and I think he has the capacity.
Absolutely. All right, prediction time. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go? All right. I got the Pacers dropping 7 games. They were 50-32 last year. I have them at 43-39, and I think that's a little optimistic, actually.
You and I have them both at the exact same record and with the exact same concerns of it might be optimistic, but I'm willing to bet on Rick Carlisle to be
absolutely. Yeah, I bet on the culture. I bet on a team with a defensive identity and with a great coach. You can do a lot with just that, especially in, like we said, in a weakened East. So there's opportunities abound for them to, really show out, and they have time to find their identity, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I mean,
without
Rick Carlisle in his how many seasons is this? In his 13th? No, that's not right. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a head coach for. Is he 18?
In his 23 seasons in the NBA?
23.
He's won more than 40 games. It looks like 16 times. So I feel comfortable. Like the guy doesn't like that. It's a lot of different groupings, a lot of different stuff. The guy wins.
I think that guy's good. I think that guy's a good coach, and he likes being in Indiana. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, right. He's tried it twice now.
Yeah, but I'll say he's come back. So our number 3 team in the East, I believe that we both will agree on, is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yes.
Hooray! Welcome to Milwaukee. The Giannis rumors continue to fly, though they did just sign Thanasis on a 1-year, $2.9 million deal. What a lovely day for the Antetokounmpo family. It's like one of those things whenever like a guy's like, a guy drops 60 and another guy drops 4, and he's like, hey, between the two of us, we had 64 points. Yeah. that's the Thanasis with Giannis. The Bucks last year, 48-34, 5th in the East. They were 10th in offensive rating. They were 11th in defensive rating. Doc Rivers returns as head coach. Who does not return is Damian Lillard, who they bought out on a just we've litigated that to death. That was just one of the craziest things I've ever seen in an NBA offseason. But here are their additions.
Don't forget as well. I mean, the loss of Brook Lopez, particularly when we're talking about the defensive
Absolutely.
structure, has to matter. Even though Miles Turner is probably an upgrade stylistically.
Kind of what I was going to bring up was that they
Okay.
lost Brook Lopez, but replaced him with Miles Turner on a 4-year, $107 million deal. They also added Amir Coffey. They added Cole Anthony, who I actually really like as a pickup for them. They need a little offense, a little pop on their bench. They added Chris Livingston. And they've still got. Is Gary Harris? Has he been there? Am I
No, I
crazy?
messed that up. That's an addition as well.
I thought
Yeah,
he was.
Gary,
Yeah, Gary.
yeah,
I was like, the addition of Gary Harris. He's
yeah.
just a journeyman backup point guard. But you know what? That's a great way to make a living in the NBA.
Look, Gary Harris is an awesome addition for 43 games next season, but let's just be real. This dude cannot stay on the floor like
Sure.
at all. Like Jesus Christ. I don't think he's played more than 50 games in like 6 seasons, something crazy like that. So even though I like him because he makes a lot of sense, obviously, for Milwaukee, who struggled so much last year in terms of having perimeter defense, particularly point of attack defense. And Gary Harris isn't quite that level of player anymore, but he can gear it up a little bit. I apologize. In 22, he played 61 games.
Oh my God! How dare you get that wrong?
Yeah, but that was the only time he's played over 54 games in the last 6 seasons. Just a guy that, he's been so snake bitten with injuries, but was good for Orlando in the little bit he played last year.
Yeah. I mean, he's also, by the way, well liked as a teammate.
Yeah.
Jokic has talked about him profusely and loves the guy to death.
I'm surprised he didn't end up in Phoenix. Former Sparty, but ends up in Milwaukee instead. Here's the biggest thing: the easy sell when we're talking about the Bucks is Giannis, right? Okay, the Bucks have made the playoffs for 9 consecutive seasons. That's Giannis. All the other guys have moved around all those pieces. They've won 40. They haven't won less than 46 games since 2018. Same thing. It's like if Giannis is on the floor, they're going to win over 45 games. That's just guaranteed because of how singularly phenomenal a player that he is. This roster has enough guys that make you go, oh, that's a nice piece. That's a nice piece. It is a little rough to understand that they don't have a single other player that's ever made an all-star appearance on their entire roster. It's just Giannis. And that's
wild to think that Miles Turner never even sniffed one. That's a little interesting. And is he in the conversation for the best, like the best guy who's ever made an all-star? Or is it still going to be CJ McCollum?
I mean, Miles Turner has to be in that milieu of guys. I think that's completely fair. The biggest problem with Miles Turner is just the inconsistencies of his game kind of overall.
Yeah, you kind of saw it in the finals last year, especially. He had a lot of open looks. And for a guy who's supposed to be a stretch big, the stretch part is a little overblown, maybe a little bit. There's maybe a little bit too much talk about it. He can hit him. It's not super consistent.
I did a piece on him. I think it was to begin last season, maybe it was the year before. But the number of games that he had where he was in single digits or over 25 was crazy. Like, so you don't know offensively on a night-to-night basis what guy you're getting. And defensively, he's a great rim protector. His kind of reputation as a defender, I think, and I don't think it's overblown any longer. I think people have now come to understand what his limitations are. He fouls too often, can't really guard out on the perimeter. He's a good shot blocker. That's what he is, and he's a mobile big, but he's not like a great defender. That being said, look, if you're Giannis, all you needed was a guy who can protect the rim so you can still weaponize your ability to fly around and do all the roaming stuff, because Giannis is at his best as a defensive wrecker in that situation. So they're going to be plucky. They're going to play good defense. Hopefully they don't get off to a terrible start as they did last year. The way that they were able to recover was pretty impressive for them. But this situation in general just doesn't, like, what's it feel like? It feels like the 6th seed in the East, right? The 7th seed?
It feels 6, 7-ish. Yeah. And we already know my feelings about Doc Rivers. I'm not a Doc Rivers guy. And I think whenever you put him in such a, this lineup, like you said, this lineup has a lot of pieces that you like that individual player, but they don't all exactly fit or make like a uh, an identity that makes sense to play like deep postseason basketball. They don't have enough shooting. Their backcourt is a real mess of a bunch of guys that they just kind of hope are going to fill the spot. I mean, you've written down what their projected starting five is, and it's Kevin Porter Jr., Torian Prince, Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, and Miles Turner. And then you've got Gary Trent, um, Bobby Portis. I'm intrigued by Ryan Rollins. I like Cole Anthony. You know, I'm already a fan of his. Andre Jackson Jr. It's too many question marks on a guy who already makes questionable substitutions and rotations. A guy that I don't really trust as a head coach, even though he's got like this amazing record as a coach. I think he's just been in a lot of really good situations, and this is one of the first times where he's actually going to have to coach. And I think he just kind of wanted to walk into a, you know, hey, I've got Dame, I've got Giannis, I've got Brooke Lopez. Great. Like I can get this team to 50 wins. But I think he wants an easier situation than what he has. And at a certain point, these guys get up there in age and they just don't really have the energy or the focus or the determination. He's already accomplished so much as a head coach. His resume is packed to the gills. I don't know what you're going to get out of Doc Rivers. And can they afford to pay another coach?
I don't think they want to have four coaches on the books.
They're not following the Phoenix Suns.
The Phoenix Suns model, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the ownership group in Milwaukee quite has Ishbia money.
Apparently, they've got Dame buyout money.
The question here for me is, where does the playmaking come from besides Giannis, who of course is going to end up being first or second in the league in usage with this group? But I mean, Kevin Porter Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Cole Anthony.
Is this just a list of guys that you just don't like?
Yeah, you already know where I stand with literally all three of those guys. Now, I like the Cole Anthony addition because he's going to give you some offensive punch off the bench. But just in your second unit, you have nobody that really is going to be orchestrating things. So you're going to stagger Porter and Giannis at times when you can, but Porter played well enough that he's going to have to play with the primary group most of the time just so you have a secondary ball handler so Giannis isn't getting completely gassed. And he shot the three well once he moved over there, even though most of the stuff he has to do is off of self-creation. It's just, it's one of those groups again. By the end of maybe they'll make a trade. It's not going to be anything that's going to be substantive in terms of an upgrade. By the end of the year, they'll go into the playoffs and probably lose in the first round again, and we'll feel like we missed out on another phenomenal Giannis season.
How bad does the record have to be before Giannis makes a request for a trade? Like how bad of a start would they have to get off to for Giannis to be like, hey, this isn't it? It's a tough question.
Look, if they come out even the way that they started last season, you know, maybe that's enough. Giannis's patience to me is probably going to wear out really fast, and I don't think it'll be one of those things where it's going to be leading up to it. He probably feels like he has enough coverage now to be okay with demanding a trade if and when the mood hits. And it would be awkward for him to do it after the season, considering what this year may look like. But it's just tough to gauge. Like, for as much as Giannis is kind of like, subversion through comments that have kind of been like soft floated, and some of the stuff we've known have driven me crazy. He's never overtly asked for a trade. He's been really committed to this organization, and what they did with his brother was obviously one of the mechanisms of trying to ensure that he stays loyal to the organization, because they didn't have him last season. There was no reason to re-sign Thanasis besides just making it a sweetener for keeping Giannis in the fold and making sure they're showing him the continued love that he wants.
I think he'd have to get to a record of, I think they have to be like 12-20. Like, it's going to have to be kind of deeper into the season. And I think that'll be around the time where he's like, if it's that bad, then no one's going to blame him if he asks out. But I think the Thanasis signing is a show of good faith by the organization. And I think that Giannis, he doesn't have to play this out. Like, he doesn't have to play it out now. because he's still on contract and he's still, then he's got the player option next year. So he doesn't have to do it now because he can just be like, hey, I'm not resigning, so you might as well trade me before. He can go to the organization and tell them, I'm not going to come back, so you might as well find the best deal and maximize it. Because he can leave the organization in a better spot, or like not a better spot, but at least in a decent position where he doesn't just leave them for nothing in free agency and leave them blindsided, which I don't believe he would ever do.
Yeah, I mean, he can help them make sure that they get De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell.
I got him going to Atlanta, and I think that's going to be my spice. I know I did a LeBron trade this last one. I think that's just my, that's where my head goes. It's just like big, huge trade for a star player happens in the middle of the season. But that would be if it was anybody, it'd be Atlanta. But I don't know. They'd have to give up Jalen Johnson and so probably some other things they don't want to. I like the way they're built for just not only now, but also for the future. But when you have a chance to get a player like Giannis, you kind of just pull the trigger. So
with Jalen Johnson's injury history, I wonder if he's enough.
Well, he by himself, he's not. But
no, but I just meant I think they'd probably they'd probably have to be like, if it's Johnson, then it's like Johnson and Ricochet, or they go, we want Trae Young, which would be an interesting. Who says no? Who says no to that?
He'd be in a very interesting position because he'd be in another team where he's the sole focal point of the offense. And to Milwaukee or to Atlanta's point, they can somewhat just point at like the Dame Giannis and be like, well, that didn't work. And Trae is a very comparable player to Giannis.
Yeah,
Trae.
To Dame, except for the thing about Trae is as a playmaker and a passer, but the reality is Giannis doesn't want to run pick and roll, so it's a moot point. I think that Giannis has gotten enough coverage now that he can ask for that trade at any point, and I don't think people would really be upset anymore. I think we've crossed the Maginot line on that now, where particularly because of how bad Milwaukee's handled their last 2 years. Not bad. Look, you can feel how you want to about Dame. I never liked the deal. If you like the deal, it made sense because they rolled the dice, but how bad the luck has turned out for all that. I don't think anybody would still hold it against Giannis. So he kind of has all the cards in his hand in terms of when he does or doesn't ask to go.
Well, I think that's a fair point. And like I said, I don't think anyone's going to be upset. I don't think that anyone's like, I think you'll be upset that you lose a star player, but you can understand the reasoning behind it. And I'm not to repeat myself, but I don't think he's ever going to leave Milwaukee in a position where they cannot maximize his value. I don't think he's going to be like, I'm not showing up for work. Trade me. I'm not going to suit up again. He's not going to go full body fat suit like James Harden and kind of just tank his own value.
Oh, I forgot about the James Harden fat appearance. Oh, that was
dude. He shows up in Brooklyn. The man lost 20 pounds in a day.
Short of that man's jersey saying clump on the back of it.
That was so. Dude, I was laughing so hard. The TNT guys just kept looking around. They're like, "What is he? Is that like a? Is he wearing a wrap? Is he wearing like a robe underneath? I don't understand why he looks so frumpy." And like I said, he shows up in Brooklyn, looks great.
Yeah.
All right, decision time. I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
I'm going 46 and 36.
I love that. Love that number. I have them at 45 and 37.
Yeah.
So just barely above the Pacers. So you've got Chicago 42, Indiana 43, Milwaukee 46, and we haven't even gotten to the top two teams.
I might be a little too high on the Central Division, and you and I had mentioned that before we got on air, where all of a sudden I looked up, I was like, oh, I've got everybody over 500. That doesn't happen very often.
Hey, about to say, that's just it speaks to what we were saying. This is a damn good division.
And again, last season, you're talking about the Bulls being 2 wins off of that being a reality. So it's not like I'm pulling this out of nowhere. Like, I expect a couple teams to get better, a couple teams to be the same, and one team to kind of drop a little bit, but not so significantly to fall off the shelf.
Hey, well, speaking of teams that have just, improved year over year over year and continue to have that upward trajectory printed all over them, the Detroit Pistons are number 2 team in the Central Division. They were 6th in the East last year at 44 and 38, offensive rating of 14, a defensive rating of 10. And the big addition for me, amongst all the other additions that they've made to this team, and they've made some significant upgrades, is Jaden Ivey coming back from injury. I think this guy gets forgotten about. And the guy's, what was he at? Before he got injured, he was like 18, 4 and or 5 and 4.
And more importantly, you're shooting something like 47% on catch and shoot threes, which is probably not sustainable. But if he can be a legitimate threat as a catch and shoot player, then he becomes the type of guy that you can fit alongside with Cade perfectly. And the questions were, how do you make those two work? Because Ivy's limitations as a shooter and the fact that a lot of times he operates best on ball. But if he can be that type of shooter again this season, and it's you and I had talked about it before when we were talking about the Pistons offseason, is the biggest addition is Jaden Ivey's health. Also, another player in a contract year coming back from an injury. There's a lot of motivational factors for Jaden Ivey to have a big season.
He's gonna walk into a situation with a team that has been battle tested in the playoffs. They lost to a very good Knicks team in some very competitive games. They lost a couple of those players. They lost Dennis Schroeder. My guess is they're not going to get Malik Beasley back. Well, he's technically been cleared of any wrongdoing, if I read that correctly.
No. What were you talking about?
By the FBI.
I don't think he got fully cleared. I think it was just kind of, well, I don't know where it ended up.
I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I don't. But more importantly,
he's not coming back.
They're not bringing him back.
But there's
the Duncan Robinson signing basically rendered that unnecessary, and not just that. I think and fully expect for them to be really into Chaz Lanier as a guy who on a rookie contract as a shooter. Look, he's going to be a rookie, so there's going to be the issues with it. But between Lanier and Robinson, you're probably much more comfortable with costs. One, because the Robinson deal is not fully guaranteed, so they basically have him on a 1-year deal, if I remember correctly, unless they want to keep him. And I think Robinson will be very good in the system for them. But the other part of it is then Lanier is the guy that you have kind of in line to replace as a high-level three-point shooter who may come into the league with the quickest catch-and-shoot release of any player as a first-year guy. So they're fine there. Malik Beasley, it's crazy to think the guy who led the NBA in three-pointers made last season, or second, excuse me.
Top 3 in the league.
Yeah, no, so I apologize. Anthony Edwards finished first. Beasley finished second, right?
Yeah, and I think Tatum was third and Steph was fourth, or maybe I swapped those.
Whatever that was. But I mean, that guy may be fighting for a minimum, or whatever he's going to get.
He might have been betting on Anthony Edwards to beat him.
Yeah.
he might have had money on him to beat his 3-point record. But yeah, all those guys were averaging over 10 3-point attempts per game.
Yeah.
So that means that there is a vacuum in the Detroit offense where a lot of these guys are going to, Cade's proven himself to be a good shooter. We already talked about Jaden Ivey. You bring in Duncan Robinson, who's one of the best catch and shoot guys in the league, which is why he got such a fat contract from Miami in the first place, even though he didn't quite live up to the expectations of it. There's going to be a lot of guys where Karis LeVert is a big addition to this team. I thought, it was a little bit of an overpay, but
I also don't love.
I didn't love it.
I'm sometimes a little unfair with Karis LeVert because I have to fully admit that my conceptualization of the player still gets locked into the guy who over dribbles to get into his shot, which was much more the Brooklyn Nets Karis LeVert. He's turned himself into a better catch and shoot player.
He's more of a complimentary role player.
He's made himself a better defensive player. Yeah, but there's still moments where the old one flares up, and I just don't want to see this with this Pistons group because they need to play a brand of basketball where the ball is moving a lot to get shooters open and to function. They have a lot of really good playmakers that were secondary and tertiary playmakers. Jalen Duren is a really good role decision maker.
Jalen Duren.
Another guy. Jalen Duren, for those that don't know, he averaged a double-double last season. He came on towards the second half of last year as a player who he is going to be probably a top 50 to top 60 NBA player next season, if not already.
He's so big and strong that he can actually afford to slim down and not really lose any of that athleticism that he's built up. Because I think sometimes he's so big and strong that he gets called for a lot of offensive fouls.
Things just because of that.
It's the way that they used to. I'm not comparing the two, but it's the way they used to referee LeBron. Yeah. Guys would go flying whenever a guy that big and that athletic ran into him, and he was like, "Look, man, I'm just bigger than them."
Yeah.
And Jalen Duren is an absolute monster. He's an athletic freak. His body is carved out of granite. And he's got really soft hands for a guy his size. He's a really great offensive rebounder. You're right about what he's good at in the short roll. He's a good passer. And you know what? He doesn't demand the ball. He's a cleanup guy.
And I'm going to tell you right now, the plays to watch for that are going to be absolute highlight reel stuff on a nightly basis is the pick and roll with Dern and Cunningham and Asar coming on the backside of that stuff, because he is such a good cutter and he is so good at getting himself into position on that backside as a lob threat or being in the dunker spot and finishing. That action is going to be so much fun to watch when they have these other shooters that allow for it. And now I'm not telling you anything new. They were doing it in the second half of the season. Duren and Ivy are playing for contracts as two guys who I also think are already on upward trajectory, so I expect them to have big years. Asar Thompson's the guy that I think is going to blow up for other people. I've been huge on Asar since I did draft work. I actually liked Asar more than I liked Amen coming into the NBA. I've changed that a touch only because when I first watched them, their athleticism was unquestionable, but I didn't know that they were going to come into the league and be in the top 5 athletes. I thought the playing field was going to level a little bit, and there is a distinction in their athleticism. And I was trying to think about how to qualify it. Basically, what it is like these guys are two I'm not great with cars anymore, but like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, whatever two cars can get to the same top speed, but one just has a faster 0 to 60. That's a men. But at their best functioning athletically, they are premium product, both of them. Asar has I thought was going to have better touch. Amen obviously is a much better ball handler. But the thing that's crazy is these guys are obviously twins. Their per 36 last season was eerily similar. And Amen was the player that everybody lauded for having the breakout season. And part of that was because Asar missed so much of the year with deep vein thrombosis. I think once Asar's amount of games played catches up, we're going to see this guy also be the player that everybody was talking about in a similar vein as Amen. They're per 36. Amen, 15.7 points per game. Asar, 16.1. Amen, 9.1 rebounds. Asar, 8.2. Amen, this is the difference because he has the ball in his hand. 4.3 assists. Asar, 2.3. Amen, 1.6 steals per game. Asar, 2.7. Amen, 1.4 blocks. Asar, 1.1. The splits. Amen, 56, 28, 68. Asar, 54, 22, 64. Those guys are eerily similar still. And again, it's part of it was because Asar missed so much of the year. That dude he's going to make all defense, if not this season, very, very soon. Like he is a defensive wrecker and an athletic freak in the open court. I love this guy.
Whenever the GMs do their, annual survey about the league and they talk about the most athletic player, it's going to be really funny to see, like, basically the top votes are going to be a 50-50 split based on who's watching which twin.
Yeah.
There's going to be a star in the East and a min in the West. They're like, that's the best athlete I've ever seen. They're like, he is the best athlete I've ever seen. And it's the same guy. It's a Spider-Man meme. They're just pointing at each other. They're like, it's just us. So, hey, shout out to the Thompsons' parents for just incredible genes to create two super freak athletes.
From San Leandro, my kind of adopted hometown, because that's where I went to high school. So shout out Bay Area. The thing that people don't realize about these two is not only are they obviously completely freakish athletes, they are bigger than people realize. They are strong, tall, and long. Like, it's like two supercharged Scottie Pippins in terms of like what their physical profile actually looks like. And I don't think and they're taller than Scottie Pippen. Like, you watch Asar when he gets the ball and goes, it's almost like you're watching him, like he transports. Like the guy takes 2 steps and he's covered half the court. It's in teleport. Excuse me, I said transport. It's like he teleports into the next place and just separates in such an insane way. It's going to be so much fun to watch him have a full healthy season. I'm really excited to watch this Pistons team in general. So much depth, so much young talent.
Absolutely. I think some people are kind of undervaluing them. I actually like the Pistons for almost like a breakout team. I think everyone's really high on Orlando, and they're strangely not as high on Detroit, even though I've seen Detroit just last season put up a better fight in any playoff series than Orlando has in the last couple of years. And it's not to say that that wasn't because of injuries or whatever the case may be, but I'm just saying, like, I'm really high on this Pistons team. Another thing I wanted to point out was we've already kind of seen what, this, so it's not the same version, but we've seen JB Bickerstaff coach a team kind of eerily similar as far as like player profiles. So think about whenever he was in Cleveland and he had Donovan Mitchell and oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Their center,
Jared Allen.
Jared Allen. So he was basically running the high pick and roll with Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell. He had two shooters on the wing. One of them, I believe, was Karis LeVert, actually. He was in a lot of the starting lineups. And then he had Evan Mobley running the baseline, a non-shooting athletic threat. And that was the best version of the Cleveland offense 2 seasons ago before obviously JB Bickerstaff was let go and then he took over for the Pistons. So we've kind of seen a version of this already and it worked to great effect with that Cleveland team. And I know these are different pieces. Obviously, Cade Cunningham's a lot bigger than Donovan Mitchell. I would say that Thompson's a better athlete than Evan Mobley, even though this guy just won like Defensive Player of the Year. It's not like he's some slouch. I just think that the Thompson twins are head and shoulders above everybody else. And then I think Duran's got a little bit more passing ability. But yeah, we've seen a version of this already, and it was super effective. So now I'm very excited to see what Detroit can do with a full season of this team. It's going to take them probably a couple of weeks to kind of get these new pieces involved. But once they figure out their rotations and once they figure out how to play together, I think we're going to see something really special. Especially like we said, I know I keep mentioning it, but it's a diminished East.
I think one of the biggest distinctions that's actually to JB Bickerstaff's benefit as well, because that offensive system obviously had its limitations in Cleveland because Donovan Mitchell is an okay playmaker. Cade is a phenomenal playmaker. So having that guy get into the teeth of the defense with on a pick and roll action and having all that other stuff and all those other outlets just works much better when Cade is the one processing and floor mapping versus Donovan Mitchell. And so even though JB Bickerstaff, and I think somewhat justifiably so, was also maligned for his lack of creativity offensively, it doesn't matter as much when Cade Cunningham is the guy that's operating those things because the creativity is baked into the style of play. It doesn't have to be baked into the offensive sets. That guy himself is going to be able to make up for the liabilities of the actual schematic problems in the way that he does things, in the way he operates within space and getting it tight there. And credit to Trajan Langdon. We've talked about it enough, but the biggest thing they needed to unlock Cade was spacing. They got the guy spacing, and watching him in another year of development on the upward trajectory, considering the breakout season he had, and I don't think enough people are aware of how damn good Cade was during the regular season last year. The guy was close to a walking triple-double, and he had gotten his efficiency finally where it needed to see. And this is still, last year was basically just his second full season, but like we're getting ready to see him continue to grow with these players. I'm with you. I'm very bullish. I need to stop using that term today. I'm very high on them. I have a little bit of concerns just about a young team finding their way. Excuse me, it was Cade's third season. I don't know why I said that. He's going into kind of his fourth full season. I have issues. A young team having that much success, they improved by 30 games over last year. So another huge jump probably seems a little tough, but a significant jump I think is possible.
Yeah, I absolutely think that too. Like on the high end, I could see them winning 52.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me at all.
Kind of replicating what the Pacers did last year. The Pacers started off 10-15, very notably, and then they found their stride in the second half of the season, and they, won 42 of their next however many games, 42 of their next 67 or 57 or whatever that was. So they were 42-15 down the stretch. Pretty impressive run. But I don't have them making a significant jump, but it's like we've already talked about this a lot. Making the jump from good to great is the hardest one to make, and it doesn't always happen in one season.
Absolutely.
So I've got the Pistons at 48-34, kind of replicating that Bucks record from last year.
49-33. So again, we're pretty close here.
Yeah, I think we both have very similar takes on this team, and I guess, like I said, I could see Orlando winning more, but what if Detroit has the better record at the end of the year and they're the top 4 team? I wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think the distinction and part of the reason everybody's gotten so high on Orlando is just the top heaviness of the talent versus a
It's
Detroit
good
team.
talent.
Detroit. I mean, look, we didn't even talk about Ron Holland, who, if the shooting from summer league is real, Ron Holland is going to be a stud. He's already a great defensive player with big size. Obviously, loves to mix it up and get in there.
Yeah,
Isaiah,
can he stay on the floor without punching someone in the face?
yeah. Well, I mean, when they roll out the goon squad and it's Ron Holland and Beef Stew out there, they're looking to put some bodies on people, but also that's part of their identity and part of their toughness. And everybody has to love how that aligns with what we've envisioned Detroit as since the bad boy days. The bad boys, and then the toughness of that aforementioned Detroit championship team in the 2000s. Like, this group also feels like it's in that vein stylistically of a very like Detroit blue collar tough team, and I love that. I like that. I'm cheering for them. I'm excited to watch this team go after it this year and see where they grow and what frustrations they may have that are not foreseen yet.
I'm big on Detroit. I like this team. I just do not. I'm glad they're in the East and they don't get to beat up on my team 4 times during the regular season. So I'll be very glad that they're over there in the Central Division beating up on like I said, really good division. Plus they have one other team that they got to contend with. A team that won 64 games last year. A team that was number 1 in offensive rating. One of the best teams in the NBA last season, surprisingly, did not lead the league in wins with 64, but they were neck and neck, and they had 2 of the best regular season games I've seen in quite some time against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and pretty back-to-back quick succession. But that Cleveland Cavaliers team, much maligned, much talked about after their dramatic bad exit from the playoffs when they got their asses handed to them by a spunky, fun Indiana team. Injuries played a part, but there's no real sugarcoating the shellacking that the Pacers gave Cleveland and bounced them from the playoffs. There was some concern that Cleveland might try and blow it up, move some players. That did not happen, thankfully. I think you look at this team and they just said, we need to make some additions on the fringes. We need to bolster our depth. We need to get a couple of years, one more year under these guys' belts, and we're going to run it back. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're running it back, but they made some pretty key additions. Lonzo Ball, we talked about earlier when we were talking about the Bulls. I love that. May have been one of my favorite. That may have been, like as far as just like role players and stuff, that may have been my favorite move of the offseason. I love Lonzo on this team. He makes so much sense. They added Larry Nance. But basically they're rolling back the starting 5 of Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, who they acquired in the middle of last season from the Atlanta Hawks, and then you got Donovan Mitchell, and you have Lonzo Ball penciled in possibly as a starter, but it's got to be Darius Garland, right?
Well, no, it's because Darius Garland's not starting the season. He's out for the first month or 2 months because of injury.
Sure. Yeah, but you're not saying he's going to supplant him.
No, of course not. But the problem is, and it's got to be part of the conversation, is Cleveland starting the year with Darius Garland hurt, and Darius Garland being hurt has been such a consistent theme with this group. Now there has to be concerns with the fact that your guard rotation in terms of your point guards are 2 very injury-prone players.
Toe stuff is so weird as far as injuries go. It's just like you can't tell if that's going to be 2 weeks or 6 months.
Yeah.
With a bad toe. It's so weird.
Yeah. Look, I have questions about this may actually provide some coverage because if they got out to a slow start, I thought Darius Garland was going to be a player that might be shopped pretty early because I'm still concerned, and we've hammered it home enough, what a defense that's a championship level defense looks like with Darius Garland as one of your core players because of the way he gets hunted and attacked quite often. The thing with this Cleveland team, I'm happy they didn't blow it up. I felt like they needed to take one more run with this for obvious reasons. It was their first real year as a whole group, especially under Kenny Atkinson, and they were so
first year coach.
Yeah, but we have to start to have questions about the mental toughness of this group. And while I don't think it's founded on Donovan Mitchell, the fact that Donovan Mitchell has made the playoffs every year of his career, which is 8 straight seasons now, and flames out, it's not just that he hasn't made it out of the second round, it's that it hasn't felt like he's been in a second round series that's really been competitive. It's like he has these amazing first round series. He averages 28 points per game as a playoff performer, but I just don't remember any second round series where it was like, oh, okay, they're like in this. And he's got to get over that. This Cleveland team has to get over whatever keeps happening with them, because sure, we can bring up injuries, but the year before, it's what we talked about is why they got bounced, because Jared Allen had the weird finger issue and Donovan was dealing with a different problem then. You know, I'm happy that we're getting them back. I think what this group will do will kind of take it down a notch during the regular season with the intention of prioritizing health and being ready come playoff time, which I think is smart. It's why I have them winning significantly less games this year. But it's undeniable what they have in terms of a talent standpoint. They have the reigning defensive player of the year. They have Jared Allen, who was a very underrated defensive player, and they've got a lot of other guys. They have so many guys that play within themselves in a really healthy way for what it looks like to build a cohesive unit. When you talk about the Max Strus, Dean Wade types, these are all guys, and Lonzo Ball is a perfect addition to that, right? Like Lonzo's not going to try to do things that he can't do just because he's feeling himself that day. And that's where this group kind of like fits in great. But I need to see it now for more than 82 games. That's just where we're at.
No, I completely agree. And I will say that, when we're talking about Donovan Mitchell, a lot of his playoff performances, he was trying to do the Superman thing where, I mean, you can look at his playoff logs and his years when he was with Utah, multiple times. He shot 30 field goals in a game. Multiple times he shot more than 25 field goals in a game. Now, that may have been out of necessity. He could have been the only person like on those Utah teams that could be reliably trusted to score. But so if you look at these playoff logs for this past season, in the games where, they swept Miami, he shot 19, 21, 14, 15. Those are field goal attempts. And then in the next series, whenever they lose Garland and he's kind of on his own again, 30 shots, 29 shots. Game 4, he went 3 of 11. And then in the final game, he went 8 of 25. So obviously, the problem with this is that when you put too much on Donovan Mitchell's shoulders, he will try and win you the game, but it looks a little Westbrookian. It looks a little four shot, trying to just make things happen, flailing around, hoping that you get a foul call on a 3-point attempt so you can get to the free throw line. They tried to make this. It's definitely a focus for Kenny Atkinson and this Cleveland Cavaliers coaching staff, is that they tried to democratize this offense a lot and spread the ball around to where it wasn't just the high pick and roll thing that JB Bickerstaff was running before, whereas Donovan Mitchell in control of the whole thing. They want to get him off ball a little bit more. But what happens with a team that is constantly injured in the playoffs and questions about toughness, he goes back and resorts to his old ways like he was doing in Utah because it's what he knows. So that's a concern for me.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and obviously that's part of why Darius Garland's impact is so important as another generator of offense for them.
Such a good passer.
Yeah, and he can be a connective tissue in a lot of ways. When Donovan's not on the floor, he can run and get everything going. There's not a lot for me really to say about this Cleveland team besides they know what they need to do. I don't think substantively we're going to see any real significant change in how they approach from last season, because that'd be crazy for you to do considering the success that they have.
They had great regular season success.
Yeah. Just got to do something in the playoffs. And for me, again,
this is the year of any year.
Yeah. Look, if you don't make it to the conference finals, it's a failed season because of how open this is and how dominant you were last year. But more importantly, I just need it to feel like you're that close to whatever it is. If you're losing in the second round of the playoffs, then you better go down like Denver did against Minnesota 2 years ago, where you're going down in crazy way in Game 7 in a hard-fought game. It's got to be something like that. It can't be a Game 6 loss because you're missing this player or that player. It just has to feel like everything was left out on the floor in all ways. And again, that's not meant to be a knock on their personnel. It's just how this Cleveland season feels like it's ended now for 2 straight years, where it just kind of, they came out all full of, piss and vinegar and kind of went out with a wet fart.
That is one of your favorite phrases to use, and it makes me laugh every time. I'm sorry, I'm a child. Farts are funny. It will always be the case. Yeah, like I said, I like the additions they made. I just like you said, I want to see it in the playoffs. Um, and that's the only question they have to answer is what does it look like whenever you get to when it really matters? Because that's the old phrase that all GMs say in the NBA. You don't really know who you are until you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So great 64 win season. Hang the banner if that's what you like to do, but we're playing for something a little bit more. So uh, is there anything else you want to add before we do picks?
I'm sure they're disappointed that they're not going to have to worry about Isaac Okoro getting wide open threes in the corner and moments that matter any longer. So good job on that trade by the other team. But yeah, hey, I'm happy for Lon. Actually, seriously, I'm happy for Lonzo. I hope we can get a healthy year from him.
God, I want a healthy year for him so badly.
He's
such a good on-ball defender.
I hope that we get like the Bill Walton 86 season kind of thing where all of a sudden we get enough health and he gets this great run with this group where he becomes this really impactful, dynamic player for this team that just needs what he can do, because that storyline is set up. And more importantly, like, I'm always going to be cheering for Lonzo in every way possible.
Lonzo's an easy guy to root for.
Yeah, his story, his style of play, it's all of those things, us light-skinned guys got to stick together. Go get them, Lonzo.
I'll rock those Chino Hills jerseys. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
Side note, I just saw some. Did you know LeVar Ball had his leg amputated because of a diabetic episode?
I did hear about this, yes.
I had not known that until like 2 days ago. That's terrible. It's not gonna prevent me from making fun of the character that LeVar Ball has created, but the person, that's awful. That's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously that's a horrible thing to deal with, but if I'm allowed to make a joke about it, he's got a big baller brand leg that he's attached to that thing. So, he's probably going to be doing commercials on like Fox News where he's like selling prosthetic legs. He's like, like, I'm LeVar Ball. You know me.
He's got all these class action lawsuits because the leg just randomly detaches mid stride or comes unhinged. If
I'm allowed to make one more joke, he almost got his son's leg amputated with those shitty shoes. So, that lawsuit's coming in hot.
Yeah.
But back to Cleveland. I got him at 60 and 22. I got him dropping a little bit.
You still got him at 60. All right.
I got him at 60. I do.
I expect a big slide back, and again, not because I think they're going to be worse. It's just last year was so crazy.
It was an outlier season.
I had them at 56 and 26.
Okay. I don't hate that at all. I might be being too generous, but I also think they're truly in a tier with just them in New York.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. 56 and 26 would put them still in first in the East from at least my selections, I believe. You don't have to go back and look at it. I think New York maybe I had at 50. Maybe they were at 56.
I think I have those. I swear I have those notes around here somewhere.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. But my point just being, we're talking about them still being the first or second team in the East. So, no.
Yes. We still have them there. And, I'm looking through my notes. I just can't seem to find it, but... Oh wait, you had the Knicks at 56 and 26 as well.
So there we go. Yeah.
And I think I had New York winning 59. So I have them literally 60 and 59. They're right there next to each other. That would be a really exciting race to the finish, by the way. If they're both fighting for that number one seed and wanting to get number one in the playoffs, kind of dig that. I love a good fight to the finish. That covers the Central Division and the Eastern Conference. Amazing stuff by you as always. Is there anything else that you need to get off your chest before we start getting to our plugs? I have no rants and no raves, by the way.
Yeah. After last week, I'm light and unburdened. Not much. Football season starting, so I've made my annual donations to a couple different fantasy leagues in need.
Our viewers might have seen my eyes darting around the screen a little bit. Apparently, I agreed to be in a fantasy football league and totally forgot about it. So while Aaron was talking, I would slightly just kind of go to and make some selections. I got the dead last pick in a snake draft, so I got 2 picks in a row and then an 18 pick gap between my selections. So I don't know what kind of team I ended up with. But in the league that I truly care about, I made a trade, and I wanted to get your assessment of this. I made a trade early in the season, so I didn't love my quarterbacks. I had I had JJ McCarthy stashed on the bench, and I had Justin Herbert as my starter. Justin Herbert has never excited me. The guy, they basically are just like, don't throw picks. So he's not a great guy for that. So I had a friend of mine. He offered me for Devontae Adams. I got Mike Evans and Dak Prescott.
Oh yeah, well, Jesus.
Yeah, you make that trade,
That's
right?
a terrible deal. Look, I drafted Devontae. It's weird because I drafted Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua in the same league. I was like, I don't know if that was the smartest decision because
Yeah.
one guy is going to probably eat there, and it's going to be Puka. But like Mike Evans is going to put up bigger numbers than Devontae Adams if history has told us anything.
11 years
by
of
himself.
1,000-yard seasons. Yeah. And last year, even when he was hurt, they made sure to get him those 1,000 yards. So they threw like hell to him down the end of the season.
And the Cowboys are going to be terrible defensively, which means
they have no running back.
And they have no running back. So they are going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if Dak, if he's healthy, throws for like 4,600 yards.
Yeah, I thought I like that. I like that trade. I woke up to it this morning, and I was a little bleary eyed, and I was like, "Is this real?" What? And I had to check it a couple of times.
That's wild.
Yeah, he had made me an offer. I think it was not Mike Evans, but he tried to get me. It was T. Higgins for somebody and Dak Prescott, and I was like, I don't like that receiver. I can't even remember who the receiver was, but I was like, yeah, I'm not. I was like, I just kind of want the quarterback, so I tried to offer him a tight end, Evan Ingram, for Dak Prescott, and then he countered with that trade. It wasn't one I suggested; it was one he sent to me.
Yeah.
So it took me about 30 minutes this morning to look at it and be like, is he being weird? Is it like, am I an idiot? And then I was like, no, I'm doing this deal. And I was sitting there nodding in my bathroom when I was brushing my teeth. I was like, no, I'm doing that deal. So I just upgraded my quarterback. I think I got at least a horizontal.
Even if it's like, let's say even if Devontae Adams is better, what's it going to be? One touchdown, 100 yards? Like, it's going to be negligible, and I don't think that'll be the case. Mike Evans is still the best. Mike Evans is the number one in that situation. Devontae Adams is the number two, so we can start there. Yeah. And then just look at the body of work. Now, both guys have had amazing seasons, but Mike Evans just always, maybe this is the year you think there's going to be a fall off, but there's no reason to think that ahead of the trade. That's a weird deal. That's weird. Well, I mean, good job by you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have a bet placed on Baker Mayfield that he will lead the NFC in touchdowns, and I think Dak Prescott will lead the NFC if he stays healthy in yards. So I could see, I think Baker threw 41 last year, and I know Dak wasn't healthy all of last year, but whenever he is healthy, the guy's productive. So I could see him throwing for 4,500 yards and maybe like 36 touchdowns to like 12 interceptions, something crazy like that. That's a good season. That's a good season. So I'm hoping for that. I mean, I'll have three players in the Thursday night game, Philadelphia and Dallas. I have Saquon, the Eagles defense, and Dak. So I'm putting a lot of my eggs in one basket on this Thursday night game. It's probably going to make or break my week one.
Wait, so you're going to have the Eagles defense going against Dak, and you're starting both? That's a tough one.
Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the Eagles get like a fumble or like a punt return, so that like a special teams touchdown early, and then they're beating up on the Cowboys like 28-3, and then the Cowboys at the end are just throwing the ball. Dak finishes with 60 attempts and he throws for 3 touchdowns and 2 picks or something like that. But like he just fights, he tries to fight his way back into that game, and
all that's of that seems completely in play. I will be at the Lynx Aces game tomorrow night, which is beautiful. A huge game. More importantly, as a Cowboys fan, I will be giving myself the kindness of not having to watch the first game of the season, which I fully expect to be an abject disaster because karma hates Jerry Jones as much as people in Dallas do.
Hey, I'm an adopted Panthers fan, and I'm hoping we just finish 7-10, baby. So, it's the difference in having expectations. If you guys finish 7-10, it's a failure. If we finish 7-10, that's a bright spot.
Honestly, if we finish 7-10 at this point, it's not a failure. It's just kind of where water's finding its level.
The only thing I'm concerned
Hey,
about
but
is
Deron Bland got paid, so there's that.
it's kind of like what the Trump administration's trying to do. They're just trying to distract you. Like Micah Parsons is the Epstein files, and he's like, "Look, Deron Bland, he got
But
paid."
because it's an organization that doesn't give a shit about its fan base because it doesn't worry about losing them, and also because Jerry Jones doesn't really care and they're so tone deaf. Think about like just the optics of that situation. You refuse to play, and Deron Bland is a very good player, but they gave him an extremely significant contract for the player that he is.
Yeah, they paid him a little bit excessively.
He got overpaid, and it's like you did that in the same week that you pulled the Micah trade.
They needed a distraction.
Yeah, you're right, but it's like the distraction was like, look here, and then I'm going to kick you in the nuts.
Yeah, they jangled the keys over here, and then the other one they're stabbing you.
Yeah,
and they're like, "What are you distracted by?" I'm still bleeding. I'm still remembering that part.
Well, we know all great defenses are always founded on quarterback play first. It's never in the trenches that you want to get started. So, shout out to them.
A 30-year-old Kenny Clark's not doing nothing for you? Okay.
Hey, you know what? In fairness, I'm cheering for Kenny Clark only because that poor guy is going to be the answer to trivia questions for the next 30 years. So I hope he's a monster.
Yeah. So Kenny Clark's just like, the fuck did I do? Like I just got traded.
Yeah.
People are mad at me. I just exist.
Just catching strays for being you. That's shitty. That's the reality of sports, though. Yeah.
Yes, it is. All right. Anything you need to plug?
Nah, we're good. But there's something coming down the line, but I'm not plugging anything yet. But I gave myself enough of a window. I think I still got some runway, but I've got some stuff that I'm going to be coming out with.
Well, you need to stay tuned to this podcast because we have one more division to go. We will be covering the Northwest Division in the Western Conference, which is funny because Oklahoma City's still in that. But we are also, like I said, we're going to be covering the WNBA. The playoffs are just around the corner. We're going to have some like WNBA centric podcasts. I'm going to need to really do my research and make sure that I'm all my P's and Q's, just like you are, because you know so much more about the league and you're so well informed. But I'm really excited for the playoffs. Even if the Liberty don't end up going anywhere, I'm super excited to cover it. And I will always say that you subscribe to the Basketball Intelligence Network. If you are not already, it is a fantastic network, and it gets all your basketball needs covered in one place. Thank you so much to them for supporting this podcast and for featuring us on there. Thanks so much to Aaron, as always, as my co-host. You're nothing short of true professional and super fun to talk basketball with. I appreciate you as always. And I don't write anything. I'm a certified yapper, but I do know how to wrap up a podcast because I'm going to end this the way that we always do, and that's by saying adios.